Say her name one more time, and I will bury you in the same dress she died in." The words cut through the gallery like a blade dragged slowly across glass. Every champagne flute in the room stopped moving. Every conversation died mid-sentence. The string quartet in the corner lowered their bows without being told. The man's fingers were still wrapped around her throat. Her back was pressed against a 300-year-old vase. Her feet were lifted off the marble floor. She could not breathe. She could not scream. The only sound she could make was the wet, broken rasp of a woman being choked to death in front of 50 of Seoul's wealthiest people. And not one of them was moving to help her. Not one. Because the stranger who had just spoken from the gallery doorway was not a man anyone in that room was willing to disobey. In this city, when he spoke, the entire block learned how to be still. He stood there in a black tailored suit, the collar of his shirt undone just enough to show the edge of dark ink crawling up the left side of his neck. A single silver streak ran through his black hair like a scar the light could not heal. His hands were in his pockets. His face was calm. His eyes were not. His eyes were already deciding how the man choking her was going to die. She was fading. The chandelier light above her had begun to blur, her vision tunneling into a single black point as her waist-length braids fell over her face. The gold cross her mother had given her the morning she left Lagos swung violently against her collarbone as her body began to go limp. And in the last second, before her eyes closed, through the tunnel, through the blur, through the dying, she saw him. The stranger, the silver streak, the black suit, the impossible stillness. He took one slow step forward, then another, and the crowd parted for him without being asked. His right hand came out of his pocket, and as it did, she saw something her fading mind could not explain. His fingers were trembling, not with fear, with recognition, as if the man walking across that gallery floor to save a black woman he had never met in his life was walking across it to save someone he had already loved and already lost, a very long time ago. The hand around her throat tightened one final time, and her eyes began to close. Somewhere in the distance, very far away, through water and darkness and the last thread of consciousness she had left, she heard him whisper a name. It was not her name. Wherever you are watching this from, drop it in the comments. Just tell us where you are. A story like this does not stay in one place. It travels. It finds the woman on the train pretending to read a book, the woman in the kitchen pretending the onions are the reason she is crying, the woman in the quiet corner of a room full of people who do not see her. If you have ever been any of those women, even once, even in a memory you do not speak about, then stay close and subscribe. Because what happens to her between the moment her eyes close in that gallery and the moment she finally learns whose name was whispered over her body is going to keep you here until the very last word. Her name was Naomi Okonkwo, 24 years old, Nigerian, beautiful in a way that made people look twice and then pretend they had not. Dark skin, waist-length braids, and a small beauty mark below her left eye. For 1,047 days, she had been the quiet black girl in the basement of Gallery Kang, restoring paintings no one thanked her for, sleeping on a folding cot in a storage closet, and wearing a smile she had been taught to keep small. 20 minutes before the stranger walked through the gallery door, Naomi had been pouring champagne. 20 minutes before that, she had been zipped into a silver dress 2 sizes too tight in the chest by a gallery assistant who would not meet her eyes. And 20 minutes before that, she had been kneeling on the basement floor, praying in whispers to a father who had been dead for 4 years, and a mother in Surulere she had not called in 18 months. Because 18 months ago, Kang Min-jae had slid a document across his desk. 400 million won. Training costs, housing, tools. A line item that simply read other. He had smiled while he explained it to her. Until you pay, you cannot leave. You cannot work. You cannot go home. And if you tell anyone, the notary will testify you signed it willingly. The lawyers there will testify you stole. You will spend 10 years in a Korean prison. No one will believe a single word that comes out of that mouth of yours. Naomi had not told anyone. She had stopped looking at her reflection in anything except the cloudy surface of the water bowls she used to clean old oil paintings, because in cloudy water she could not see the bruises clearly enough to feel them. On that Thursday night, the Chinese buyer had not come. By 9, Kang Min-jae had finished the second bottle of French wine he had been saving for the signing. And by 9:10, His eyes had found Naomi across the gallery floor. By 9:12, he was walking toward her with the straight-line walk of a drunk man pretending to be sober. "Come here." "Kangxi, please." You smiled at him too much in the hallway. He did not even come. You just said, "I said come here." His hand closed around her wrist, and when she pulled away, he pulled harder, forcing her back against the plinth behind her until the 300-year-old vase wobbled on its stand. "Kangxi, people are watching. Let them watch." His hand moved from her wrist to her throat in front of all of them. In front of the woman in the red dress. In front of the gallery director who studied the ceiling. In front of the string quartet that did not miss a single note. In front of the 50 most powerful people in Seoul, who had learned long ago that Kang Min-jae's tempers were simply the weather of his gallery, and the weather of Kang Min-jae's gallery was not their business. Her feet left the floor. The vase behind her did not fall. Yet, somewhere behind her closing eyelids, she saw her mother's face, young and radiant, holding a baby Naomi on one hip in front of a Lagos sunset. So this is how it ends. In a silver dress. In a gallery full of people. For nothing. And then the door opened, and the voice cut the room in half. "Say her name one more time, and I will bury you in the same dress she died in." She had not known the words were not meant for her. She had only known that a hand was around her throat, her mother's face was fading, and somewhere a voice was cutting through the dark like a blade across glass. And then she had seen him, and his fingers had trembled, and he had whispered a name that was not hers. And then her eyes had closed. The next thing Naomi felt was cold leather against her bare arm. She was in a car. Her throat was on fire, her mother's gold cross still at her collarbone, and someone had fastened the broken clasp while she was unconscious. She did not know who, and she did not want to know who. Neon slid across the tinted windows in bars of pink, white, and electric blue. She was not alone. He was sitting on the opposite bench, hands folded, the silver streak in his hair catching every color the city threw at him. His eyes were already on her, and they had been, she realized now, for every second she had been waking up. When she tried to speak, her throat refused her. He did not help. Instead, he reached forward slowly and placed a small chilled bottle of water on the leather beside her hand, not opening it, not touching her fingers, simply setting it down before returning his hands to his lap. She stared at it, then at him, then at it again. It took her a long moment to understand. He was letting her choose. After 3 years of being told what to wear, what to eat, what to swallow, what to smile, the simple act of a stranger placing a bottle on a seat and not forcing it into her hand made her eyes fill before her hand moved. When she picked it up, her fingers shook so badly she could not twist the cap. On her 4th try, he reached across the seat, moving slowly, the way a man reaches toward an animal that has every reason to bite him. His hand came close to hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin before he touched her. And then he stopped, hovering. His fingers drifted 1/2 centimeter above her knuckles, close enough that the fine hairs on the back of her hand lifted. And then he shifted carefully, and took only the bottle. Not her fingers, only the bottle. He twisted the cap and placed the bottle back in her palm already opened. Their hands had not touched. But Naomi felt the almost touch in a place below her collarbone that had not registered any sensation at all in 3 years. She drank, and the cold water hit her raw throat like glass dust. She coughed, water spilling down the front of the silver dress and darkening the fabric across her chest, and he looked away at the exact second the water spilled. Not because he was not watching her, but because he was watching her too carefully. That small gesture, the look turned aside, the privacy given without being asked for, hit her somewhere softer than the choking had. "Where?" she finally managed. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere safe." That is not an answer. No, it is not. Who are you? He paused, and the neon slid across his jaw. Silver, then gold, then blue. Someone who was not supposed to be at that gallery tonight. Then why were you? I was looking for a painting. Which painting? His eyes moved to the window. Not the one I found. She pressed the cold bottle against the side of her throat, where bruises were already rising beneath her dark skin. Is he dead? His eyes came back to her, and for the first time, something that was almost a smile touched the corner of his mouth. It was not warm. Not yet. Not yet? He is alive because you are alive. If you had died, he would already be in pieces small enough to post to his mother. He said it the way other men discuss the weather. Naomi looked down at her hands, at the knuckles scraped from clawing at the fingers that had been around her throat. He has a contract, she whispered. I owe 400 million. If I try to leave, 500. Her head came up. What? I bought you for 500. In front of the entire gallery. 50 witnesses. As of 40 minutes ago, you do not owe him anything. She stared at him. You bought me. I bought the contract. That is not different. His gaze did not waver. It is very different. But tonight in this car, with your throat the way it is, it probably does not feel very different. Who do I owe now? He did not answer. Who do I owe now? Her voice cracked in the middle of the sentence, and he studied her for a long moment before he answered, his voice so quiet when it came that she had to lean forward to hear him. You owe me nothing. That is not possible. It is possible because I have decided it is possible. She began to cry without meaning to, the tears sliding down her cheeks in silence. He did not look away this time. He watched her the way a man watches a painting he has been told is priceless, and is only now beginning to understand why. People do not do this, she whispered. People do not just do this. For strangers. No, they do not. So why are you? The silver streak caught a flash of red from a passing sign, and for 1 second his eyes were not focused on her, but on something behind her, or through her, or beside her that Naomi could not see. Because I saw you in that gallery, he said, and I realized I was already too late for someone once, and I decided tonight would not be the second time. No further explanation came. She leaned back against the leather, letting her eyes close. In the quiet of the car, as the neon kept sliding across his face, Naomi felt something she had not felt in 3 years. She felt seen. Not the way Kang Min-jae had seen her, as a body to display. Not the way the buyers had seen her, as something exotic to glance at and look away from. Seen the way she had been seen when she was a child on her father's knee in Surulere, and her father had told her she was made of the same clay God used for kings. She did not know this man, did not know his name, did not know why his hand had trembled, but she knew in that moment that if she asked him to turn the car around right now and drive her to the airport and put her on a plane to Lagos, he would do it. And the fact that she believed completely that he would was the most dangerous thing that had happened to her all night. Because Naomi Okonkwo, who had stopped trusting men 2 years ago in a Seoul basement, felt the small, terrible pull of a woman beginning to trust one again. Opening her eyes, she looked at him across the bench seat. He was already watching her. What is your name? She whispered. He held her gaze, and for a long moment, no answer came. Not because he did not want to tell her, but because, as she would realize later while lying in a silk bed in the quiet of morning, he had not said his own name out loud to a woman who looked like this in 4 years, and he had forgotten how it was supposed to feel. I will tell you, he said finally, in the morning. Why not now? Because if I tell you now, you will spend the whole night afraid of it. The car slowed. Turning her head to the window, Naomi saw that they had left the neon behind and were climbing into the hills north of the Han River, where the streetlights thinned and the walls grew higher. Through the tinted glass, the shape of a compound rose ahead. Stone walls, iron gates, a long dark driveway curving up through trees. Before the car reached the gate, the radio in the front seat crackled. The driver answered in Korean, quick, tense, and the Silver Streak man sat forward sharply. 3 words passed between them, a decision was made, and the car pulled over to the side of the driveway and stopped. Stay in the car, he said quietly. What is stay in the car? Opening the door, he stepped out into the night. Naomi pressed her face to the tinted glass. 3 men were standing in the driveway ahead. Not his men. She did not know how she knew that. She just knew. They were dressed in dark coats, and one of them was holding something long and pale at his side that took her a second to understand was a metal pipe. The silver-streaked man walked toward them the way a man walks toward a door he has opened 1,000 times before. "Tiger faction," one of the three said in Korean, words Naomi could not understand, though the tone was clear. "We heard you bought something tonight." "I did." "We want to see it." "You will not." "Minhyuk shi." "Walk away." The one with the pipe laughed. He did not laugh long. The silver-streaked man moved, not with a punch, not at first, but with a single clean step forward, his hand finding the man's wrist and bending it the wrong way until the pipe was falling out of a hand that had stopped being able to hold it. Before the pipe hit the gravel, he had caught it in his other hand. One swing, and the man who had laughed stopped laughing and stopped standing at the same moment. The second came at him with a knife. Turning his body sideways, the silver-streaked man let the blade slide past his ribs, caught the wrist that was holding it, twisted it behind the man's back, and drove the pipe into the back of his knee. Something cracked, and the man went down screaming. The third man ran, and the silver-streaked man let him run. Alone in the driveway now, the pipe in one hand, and two men on the gravel at his feet. He was not breathing hard, not moving fast, only standing there in a black tailored suit with the collar of his shirt undone, the dark ink on the side of his neck moving faintly in the cold October air. The pipe clanged once as it hit the stone, and he walked back to the car. Opening the door, he sat down, closed it, and looked, not at Naomi, but at his own right hand. The hand was not trembling anymore. To the driver he said only quietly, in Korean, "Drive." The car pulled forward through the gates. Naomi did not breathe for the next 10 seconds. She had just watched a man break two other men in under 15 seconds, with nothing but a pipe in his own hands, and then returned to the car as if he had stepped outside to check the weather. What terrified her was not the violence. What terrified her was that somewhere, beneath the fear, a small voice inside her had whispered, "He did that because of me." Neither of them spoke. The silence between them from the gate to the front door of the compound was the most intimate silence Naomi Okonkwo had ever sat inside. When the car stopped, she looked at him, and he was already looking at her. "Can you walk?" he asked. "I think so." "Do you want me to carry you?" She hesitated. The honest answer was yes. Her legs were still made of water. Her throat was closing again, and she wanted, in that moment, to feel a pair of arms beneath her knees and behind her back, to feel the cedar and the smoke and the cold thing underneath against the side of her face. She wanted him to carry her. She did not say it. "I can walk," she whispered instead. Studying her face for one long second, he seemed to hear the answer she had not given, to understand it completely, to be choosing right now, not to hold her, not because he did not want to, but because he did. "Then walk," he said softly. "I will be beside you." Opening the door, he stepped out without reaching for her. She walked beside him across the gravel, her silk-work shoes whispering on the stone, the cold of Seoul night settling on her bare shoulders. The silver dress was stained across the front with water, and her gold cross swung at her collarbone with every step. At the front door, he stopped. "There is a room upstairs," he said. "It is ready for you. A woman named Mina will help you into something clean. In the morning, a doctor will come. I will not disturb you tonight." "Why?" His eyes did not meet hers. "Because if I see you in that dress one moment longer, I will do something I have not earned the right to do." She did not understand what he meant. Not until 2 hours later, lying in the ivory bed with the lamp turned low and the clean silk nightgown against her skin, running her fingers along the inside of her wrist where he had almost touched her, and understanding with a slow, cold heat that the something he had not earned the right to do was the simple act of putting his hand on her face. When he opened the front door, a woman in a grey uniform bowed and took Naomi gently by the elbow. Turning once more to look at him, Naomi found him still standing in the doorway, the silver streak catching the porch light. Their eyes met, and she felt it in her chest the way you feel a bass note in your ribs before you hear the sound. Then his gaze shifted away, and the woman in the grey uniform walked Naomi up the marble staircase. The The stranger with the silver streak in his hair did not follow. When Naomi woke for the second time, she was in the bed. Ivory silk, a cream comforter, a single low lamp left on, a long silk nightgown the colour of pale wheat against her skin, the silver dress folded on a chair, her work shoes set side by side beneath it, her gold cross still at her collarbone. Sitting up slowly, she took in the room. Beautiful, quiet, expensive in a way that was not trying to impress her. Walls the colour of unbleached paper, heavy ivory linen curtains drawn closed, a vase of white magnolias on a dresser. Beside the vase stood a glass of water, a folded note, and something that made her stomach tighten before her mind understood why. A hairbrush, silver-backed, expensive, and clean, its bristles woven with long, straight black strands of human hair. They were not her hair. Her hair was in braids. The hair in this brush was straight, silken, Korean. Her eyes moved around the room. The closet door stood ajar, and inside hung 20 dresses in her size, with shoes in her size arranged on the floor. On the vanity, a row of glass bottles held Korean skincare, a brand she had stared at through a pharmacy window 18 months ago and walked away from. The skincare was already open. The hairbrush had hair in it. The shoes had creases in the leather. This room had not been prepared for her. This room had been prepared for someone else. Her trembling hand reached for the note. The doctor will come at 11. Eugene will bring breakfast at 9. Do not cut your hair. Do not wear it pinned up. Do not leave the second floor without Eugene. You are not a prisoner. These are only 3 requests. The clothes are yours. The room is yours. The house is safe. No signature. Do not cut your hair. Do not wear it pinned up. Crossing to the vanity on legs that did not feel like her legs, she sat on the small stool and opened the top drawer. Inside was a photograph. Silver frame, turned face down. Picking it up, she turned it over. The woman in the photograph was Korean, laughing in a white dress, with long black hair, high cheekbones, a narrow jaw, a full mouth, and a small beauty mark just below her left eye. Naomi touched her own left cheek. The small beauty mark she had inherited from her grandmother, born in Nui, dead before Naomi was born, sat in exactly the same place. The cheekbones in the photograph were her cheekbones. The jaw was her jaw. The curve of the mouth, with different skin, with different hair, with a different life, was her own face looking back at her from 4 years ago. The photograph slipped from her fingers. Naomi did not scream. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Pressing one hand over her mouth and bracing the other against the vanity to keep from sliding off the stool, she stared at the photograph where it had fallen face up on the polished wood. I was already too late for someone once, the stranger had said, and I decided tonight would not be the second time. The door opened behind her. She did not turn. A man stepped in, not the stranger, but someone younger, with softer eyes, a thin pale scar across his jaw, and dark ink on his forearm where his sleeve had written, "Up." A breakfast tray was balanced in both his hands. "I am sorry," I knocked. "My name is Park Eugene. I work for the man who brought you here. I brought small food, porridge, because of your throat, tea, because of your throat, honey, because, again, because of your throat." Setting the tray on a low table, he turned and saw her face, the photograph on the vanity, the trembling of her shoulders. Something quick moved in his expression, gone before she could name it. He crossed the room and knelt on the carpet beside her. "You found it," he said quietly. She could not speak. "I was going to move it before you woke. He asked me to. I forgot. I am so sorry." Her hand lowered from her mouth. "Who is she?" "Her name was Seo Hyun. Was. She died 4 years ago." "How?" A long silence. "That is not my story to tell." "How did she die?" "Please, not from me. He will tell you when he is ready, if he ever is." Turning her head slowly, Naomi steadied her voice. "Why does she look like me?" Eugene lifted his eyes. "She does not look like you. You look like her." Holding his gaze, Naomi felt something off in his kindness. Too quick, too practiced. the apology sliding out too smoothly. The scar on his jaw caught the morning light, and a sharp, strange feeling moved through her. A feeling she could not explain, a feeling that belonged to a part of her she had learned to trust in the basement of Gallery Kang. That the gentle man kneeling beside her had knelt beside wounded women before, and had learned somewhere the exact angle of shoulder and voice that made them feel safe. She did not trust him. She did not know why. Lifting the teacup with both hands, she drank slowly, and the honey soothed the raw places. "What is his name?" she said over the rim of the cup. "The man who brought me here." Eugen studied her for a long moment. Then he said the two syllables that would, from that morning on, live inside her chest like a second heartbeat. "Min-hyuk," he said softly. "Lee Min-hyuk." Downstairs, in a study lined with books he had not read in 4 years, Lee Min-hyuk sat in a leather chair with his jacket folded over the arm, staring at his own right hand. The hand was still trembling. It had stopped in the driveway, while he was breaking 2 men with a pipe. It had started again the moment he had seen her walk beside him across the gravel without taking his arm. Closing his eyes, he let his head fall back against the leather, the dark ink on the left side of his neck moving with the motion. "You came back to me," he had whispered in Korean over an unconscious Nigerian girl in the back of his car the night before. The words had slipped out of a place he had sealed shut 4 years ago and buried under so many layers of steel and silence that he had stopped believing the place still existed. And yet, rising from the chair, he walked out of the study and climbed the staircase, coming to a stop outside her bedroom door. Through the wood, he could hear the small, quiet sound of a teacup being set back on a tray, the sound of Eugen speaking softly, the small, broken laugh of a woman who had not laughed in a very long time. He pressed his forehead against the wood. Lifting his right hand, which was trembling again, he placed his palm flat against the door, exactly at the height where, if the door were not between them, his hand would have been resting on her cheek. 1 minute passed. 2. 3. He did not go in. Not because he did not want to, but because he wanted to too much. Taking his hand off the door, he turned and walked back down the stairs. 1 more day. He did not trust himself yet to look at her. He would give her 1 more day. And upstairs, behind the closed door, Naomi Okonkwo finished her honey tea, set the cup down on the tray with both hands, and turned her face toward the window where the ivory curtains had begun to glow with the first gold of Seoul morning. She did not know that the man who had brought her was, at that moment, standing at the bottom of the staircase with his hand on the banister, and his eyes closed. She did not know that her palm, resting on the vanity, was aching in the exact place where his hand had almost touched hers in the car. She did not know that Park Eugen, the gentle one, the one who had knelt beside her on the carpet, was at that very moment watching her over the rim of his empty water glass, with an expression that had nothing in it of the kindness he had performed. She did not know that 4 years ago, on a rainy October night, Park Eugen had killed the woman in the photograph. Rising slowly from the carpet, Eugen smiled the small, gentle smile he had taught himself to smile. "Rest," he said. "I will come back at lunch. The doctor will be here soon. You are safe in this house." Stepping out, he closed the door behind him. Naomi sat very still. She did not trust him, and she did not know why. He had been kind. He had brought food. He had knelt beside her. But something in the way his eyes had moved from the photograph to her face, something in the small extra second he had held her gaze over the rim of his water glass, had planted a cold, small seed in the center of her chest. Turning back to the vanity, she picked up the photograph 1 more time. "Seo Hyun," she whispered, testing the name. The dead woman did not answer. Setting the photograph face down in the drawer and sliding it closed, Naomi rose and walked to the window, drawing back the curtain with 2 fingers. Outside, the hills were silvered with mist. A gardener pruned camellias along the back wall. 2 men in dark suits walked the perimeter. The black car was parked at the far gate, waiting, as if it had never left. Letting the curtain fall, she turned back toward the bed on legs that were still unsteady, and sat slowly on the edge of the mattress, the silk of the nightgown shifting against her thighs. She looked down at her own hands, the scraped knuckles, the dark skin, the small tremor that had not fully left her fingers since the gallery. Closing her eyes, she saw 2 things at once behind them. She saw the photograph of the dead Korean woman in the white dress, laughing. And she saw the silver streak in the dark hair of the man who had looked at her in the car, as though he had been waiting for her for 4 years. She did not know how long she sat there with her eyes closed, holding both images inside her at the same time. The dead woman laughing, and the living man with the silver streak. Time in that ivory room had begun to move strangely, the way time moves for people who are no longer certain what day it is or what country they are in. The magnolias on the dresser opened one petal wider while she was not watching. When she finally stood, her legs held her. The doctor came at 11, as the note had promised. A quiet Korean woman in her 60s with grey hair pinned at the nape of her neck, and a leather bag that smelled faintly of antiseptic. Speaking in careful English, she examined Naomi's throat, pressed gentle fingers along her ribs, and asked questions in the small, neutral voice of a professional who had clearly been instructed not to ask certain others. Does this hurt? Yes. Does this hurt? Yes. Did he use his hands only, or something else? Only his hands. How many times has this happened before? Naomi's eyes lifted from the carpet. The doctor was not looking at her, writing something in a small black notebook. Waiting. 4 times, Naomi whispered. The pen paused for 1/2 second over the page, then continued writing. 3 ribs cracked, none broken, the doctor said gently when she finished, closing her bag. The bruising on your throat will darken before it fades. You will not be able to swallow solid food for 3 days. I am leaving a cream for the ribs. I am leaving a tea for the throat. I am leaving my card. If you need a woman to talk to who is not him, you call the second number, not the first. Naomi held the card in both hands after the doctor had gone. The second number was circled in ink. No one had circled anything for her in 3 years. Eugen brought her soup at 1, rice porridge thicker than the morning's, with small pieces of soft white fish. He did not kneel this time, standing quietly by the window while she ate, his hands folded in front of him, watching the gardener move along the far wall. He has not come up, Naomi said after a while, setting down her spoon. Eugen's gaze stayed on the window. No. Will he? When he is ready. Is he ever ready? A small, careful smile touched the scar on his jaw. He has not been ready for 4 years. You are the first thing that has made him consider what ready might mean again. The soup turned heavy in her mouth. She set the bowl aside and studied him, watching the way the light caught the line across his jaw. Eugen see. Did you love her too? The pause that followed was so small it would have been invisible to anyone who was not watching for it. Naomi was watching for it. She had been watching for it since the moment he had knelt on the carpet that morning, and the small half-second of silence that came before his answer told her more than the answer itself. Everyone loved Haeun, Eugen said softly. It was a thing you could not help, like breathing. He turned his head then, and the look that crossed his face was so tender, so full of a grief so old and so well kept, that for the length of one heartbeat Naomi was sure she had imagined the cold seed in her chest from the morning. Then he smiled the small, gentle smile again, and picked up the empty bowl, and the cold seed came back. She could not sleep that night. The silk of the bed was too smooth under her skin, the room too quiet, and somewhere around 2 in the morning she rose and crossed to the window, and drew back the curtain with 2 fingers. The compound below was dark except for a single light burning in one of the downstairs windows. The study, she realized, though she had not yet been allowed downstairs. Against the light, in silhouette, she could see the shape of a man sitting very still in a leather chair, his head turned in the direction of her window. He was not moving. He was looking up. She let the curtain fall before he could see her see him, and stood for a long time in the dark with her palm pressed flat against the cool glass, her heart beating at a tempo she did not entirely recognize. The next morning her bruises had darkened to the color of overripe plums, and her voice had gone from hoarse to almost absent. Eugen brought breakfast and did not try to make conversation. She ate 2 spoonfuls of porridge and set the bowl aside. The silence between them had gone from companionable to something more careful, as if he too had begun to feel the cold seed she did not yet have a name for. She spent the afternoon sitting by the window, watching the gardener move from the camellias to a row of late October chrysanthemums along the east wall. She did not read. She did not speak. She waited, though she could not have said what for. Dinner came and went. Eugen bowed from the door and said he would see her in the morning, and closed it quietly behind him. She lay in the bed with the lamp off for a long time, and eventually, sometime after 11, she drifted into a shallow sleep that was not really sleep. She woke at 1:47 in the morning to the sound of her own breathing. Something in the room had changed. She did not know what, and for a full minute she lay very still beneath the comforter, trying to understand what her body was telling her. Then she turned her head on the pillow and saw it. On the dresser, beside the vase of magnolias, her phone was plugged into a charger. Her phone. The one Kang Min-jae had given her 3 years ago in the basement of the gallery. The cheap black one with the cracked corner from the time he had thrown it at the wall behind her head. The one she had last seen in the pocket of the silver dress on the gallery floor 4 nights ago. Somehow it was here. Plugged in. Charging. The small green light at the top blinking softly in the dark. Naomi sat up slowly in the bed. Her heart began to climb into her throat. She had not brought the phone into this house. She had not asked anyone to retrieve it. She had assumed, if she had thought about it at all, that it was still lying on the marble of Gallery Kung somewhere under a sheet of police tape, or in a box in a storage room waiting to be returned with the rest of her things. It was not in a storage room. It was on her dresser. She was halfway across the carpet on bare feet when the phone rang. The sound was so loud in the silent room that she flinched and nearly tripped on the hem of her nightgown. She caught herself against the edge of the dresser, her hand landing a centimetre from the phone itself, and she looked down at the screen. The caller ID glowed in the dark. Kang Min-jae. She did not answer. The ringing went on for 20 seconds, each ring longer than the one before it, and then it stopped. The screen went dark. She stood with her palm pressed flat against the wood of the dresser, her breath coming in short, shallow pulls, and for a moment she was sure she had imagined it. Then the screen lit up again. A text message. She opened it with a thumb that was not quite under her control. I know where he is keeping you. I know what you are wearing. I know you are alone tonight. The man who bought you will not always be in the house. Think carefully about what you said to him about me. Kay, her knees buckled. She sat down hard on the carpet in front of the dresser, the phone still in her hand, and for a full 30 seconds she could not breathe at all. I know what you are wearing. She looked down at herself. The pale, wheat silk nightgown, the one Mina had given her on the first night, the one no one outside this house had seen. I know you are alone tonight. She lifted her head slowly and looked at the bedroom door. It was closed. It had been closed since Eugen had left after dinner. No one had opened it in 6 hours. But someone had come in. Someone in this house had come into her room while she was sleeping, plugged in a phone that should not exist, and walked out again without her ever waking. She did not sleep again that night. She spent the rest of the night sitting on the floor with her back against the dresser, the phone face down on the carpet beside her, her knees pulled up to her chest. She watched the curtains slowly begin to glow grey, then pink, then pale gold. She watched a single bird land on the windowsill outside the glass and fly away again. She did not move. When the knock came at a little past 8, she did not stand to answer it. It is Eugen. I brought tea. Come in. He stepped inside with the tray balanced in both hands, and when his eyes found her on the floor in front of the dresser, the tray tilted 1/4 of an inch before he caught it. Naomi C. What? She held up the phone without speaking. Eugen set the tray down very carefully on the low table near the window. He crossed to her slowly, the way a man approaches a wounded animal that has every reason to bite him. He did not kneel. He bent at the waist and took the phone from her outstretched hand, and the moment his fingers closed around it, Naomi saw the small, quick tightening of his jaw that she had been watching for since the first morning. Where did this come from? He said quietly. I was going to ask you that. He read the message. His eyes moved across it once, twice, a third time. When he looked up, his face was the careful, gentle mask she had already learned not to trust. But underneath the mask, something else had gone very still. I will take this to him now. Eugen C. Yes. Someone came into this room last night. I know. While I was asleep. I know. Do you know who? The pause was very small. So small that Naomi, sitting on the floor with her back against the dresser, almost missed it. But she had been waiting for it for 2 days, and she did not miss it. No, he said, I do not. He left the room with the phone in his hand. 30 minutes later, the bedroom door opened without a knock. Lee Min-hyuk walked in. He had not been inside her room since the first morning when he had pressed his palm against the door and not come in. He was wearing a black shirt and no jacket, his sleeves rolled to the forearms, and the silver streak in his hair caught the pale morning light from the window. In his right hand, he was holding the phone she had handed to Yujin an hour earlier. He crossed the room to where she was still sitting on the carpet in front of the dresser, knelt on one knee in front of her, and did not touch her, did not reach for her, did not speak immediately. He placed the phone face down on the carpet beside her and studied her face for a long moment. Was the phone plugged in when you went to bed? No. Who brought you tea last night? Yujin. But he left after 10 minutes. Before 9. Who else has been in this room between then and now? No one. I have been alone since he left. Min-hyuk's jaw did not move. His eyes did not move. Only the knuckles of his right hand, resting on his knee, shifted slightly. A small tightening Naomi would not have noticed if she had not been watching them. Someone in this house helped him, he said quietly. Yes. I will find out who. How? The same way I find out anything. I will ask until someone stops being able to lie. He rose to his feet, and she reached up and took his wrist with her fingers. Not to stop him exactly, but to keep him in the room for one more moment. He looked down at her hand on his wrist, at the small dark fingers against the pale inside of his arm where the ink did not reach, and something in his face softened for the first time that morning. Min-hyuk. Yes, he said you will not always be in the house. He is wrong. He sounded very certain. Min-hyuk knelt down again, this time on both knees, and brought his face level with hers. His free hand rose and cupped the side of her jaw, his thumb resting against the hinge of her cheekbone. Listen to me, he said quietly. From today, you are not alone in this house, even when you are alone in this house. There is a woman named Mina. You have met her. She will sleep in the next room from tonight. There will be 2 men on the landing outside this door. There will be 1 woman on the garden side of this wall. There will be someone in a car at the end of the street with a camera. If Kang Min-jae wants to reach you, he will have to come through 6 people to do it, and the 6 people will be very good at what they do, and he is not. And you. I will be in the house. When you have to leave. His eyes held hers. Then I will not be leaving tonight. He kissed her forehead, a small firm kiss. Not romantic, the kind of kiss a man gives when he is making a promise he would rather not say out loud. And rose, pocketing the phone, and left the room. By noon the next day the television was on in her room again. Not because Naomi had asked for it, but because Yujin had knocked and said quietly from the doorway that there was something Min-hyuk had asked him to show her. When she opened the door, he was holding a folded newspaper and a small remote, and the careful apologetic expression on his face told her that something had happened she was not going to want to see. He said you should know, Yujin said. He did not want you to find out from anyone else. What? Please sit. Naomi did not sit. The television slid out of the wall and came to life on a Korean morning show. She saw him before she understood she was seeing him. Kang Min-jae. Sitting across from a female anchor in a cream-tailored suit, laughing at something she had just said. His right hand in a pristine white cast, resting lightly on the arm of his chair. His hair cut. His skin brightened. A small chyron ran across the bottom of the screen in cheerful yellow Korean letters and English subtitles. Seoul's youngest gallery mogul. Rising star at 30. The anchor leaned forward, smiling. And this poor hand, Kang-si, please tell us what happened. Skiing in Pyeongchang, over the weekend. I should have stayed on the beginner run. My doctor says I am forbidden from holidays for the rest of the season. The anchor laughed. The audience laughed. The chyron changed to Kang Min-jae, 30, Korea's most eligible bachelor under 35. Naomi did not sit. She did not cry. Walking past Yujin and into the bathroom, she closed the door behind her, knelt in front of the toilet, and threw up the tea the doctor had given her, and the porridge Yujin had brought an hour earlier. and 2 days of silence, and the text message from the night before, and 18 months of Korean prison threats, and 2 years of silver dresses zipped by women who would not meet her eyes, and 3 years of cloudy water bowls. When there was nothing left, she kept heaving anyway. She did not know how long she had been on the bathroom floor when the knock came. It was not Eugen's knock. This was a single knock placed flat against the wood with the heel of a palm, and the palm had been trembling when it landed, because Naomi could feel the small echo of the tremor through the floor under her knees. "I am coming in," he said quietly from the other side. "If you do not want me to, say so now." She could not speak. After 3 long seconds of her silence, the door opened. Lee Min-hyuk stepped into the bathroom. He did not speak. He did not reach for her. He walked to the sink, took a clean washcloth from the folded stack, ran it under cold water, wrung it out, and crossed the tile slowly until he was kneeling in front of her with the cloth folded in his hands. Only then did he offer it, palm up, held out just far enough that she had to choose whether to take it. She took it. She pressed the cold cloth against her mouth. He waited. "How many times?" she finally whispered. "How many times what?" "How many times has he been on television since that night?" "Twice. This was the second." "Is he famous?" "In the smallest ponds, he is a large fish. That is what men like him survive on. Small ponds and the silence of the fish who know better." Naomi closed her eyes, and her shoulders began to shake. Not crying. Something older and more dangerous than crying. When she opened her eyes, she found him watching her with an expression she had not yet seen on his face. Not tenderness exactly, not pity. Something closer to grief. "He will not be on television again," Min-hyuk said. "I promise you that. Do not kill him." The answer came so fast that he could not have thought about it before he gave it. His eyes lifted to hers, surprised, and for the first time since she had met him, there was something slightly off balance in his face. "Why not?" "Because if you kill him, he becomes the tragedy. Every anchor in Seoul will cry for him. The story of what he did to me will die with him. I do not want him dead, Min-hyuk-si. I want him ruined. I want him alive and poor and stripped of everything, and walking past the gallery he used to own, and not being allowed through the door." He looked at her on the bathroom floor for a long time. Then, slowly, he lifted one hand and placed it against the side of her face. His palm was cool. His fingers were calloused in places she had not expected. His thumb moved once, very lightly, along the ridge of her cheekbone, and stopped there. It was the first time he had touched her. Her hand came up without her deciding it, and rested on top of his, holding his palm against her cheek, as if she were afraid he would take it away. "Ruined," he said quietly. "You have it." She closed her eyes, turned her face half an inch, and pressed her lips very lightly against the heel of his palm. Not a kiss. Almost one. Enough to tell him that what he had said outside her door the first night, about the thing he had not earned the right to do, had now become something he had. Min-hyuk exhaled, and his forehead came down to rest against hers, the silver streak in his hair falling forward until it touched her braids. His other hand rose and tilted her chin the smallest fraction upward. He kissed her. It was not a kiss that began in hunger. It was a kiss that began in permission, his mouth brushing hers once, light as breath, asking, and her mouth answering by staying. He kissed her again, longer, and she felt his fingers tighten against her jaw, as if he were afraid she might disappear if he did not hold her there. Her hand left his palm and rose to the side of his neck, settling against the edge of the dark ink that crawled up from beneath his collar, and the heat of his skin under her fingertips was the first warm thing she had touched in 3 years, that belonged to someone who had chosen her. When he pulled back, his forehead stayed pressed to hers. "I should not have done that here." "Why?" "Because the first time I kissed you should not have been on a bathroom floor." "It is where I am." "I know." "Then it is where it belonged." He closed his eyes and pressed his mouth very briefly to the bridge of her nose, the smallest third kiss, almost accidental, and rose, pulling her up with him. Her legs held, barely. "Eat something," he said. "Not today. Tomorrow. Tonight I want you to sleep." "Are you leaving?" "For a few hours." "Where?" He did not answer. Where? She said again. His eyes moved to the door, to the stairs beyond the door, to the city beyond the stairs, to the smallest pond, to talk to a fish who has forgotten that it is small. He did not go to Gallery Kang that evening. He went somewhere quieter, a private members' club in Cheongdam, where Kang Min-jae drank on Thursdays with 3 other young men from old families, who had been told their entire lives that the laws of Korea were the laws of Korea, and the laws of their father's phone numbers were something else. Walking into the club without an appointment, he passed a hostess who opened her mouth to stop him, and then closed it when she saw his face. The manager, emerging from the back, recognized him at 5 paces and turned around and went back into the office and closed the door, because there were some evenings you were paid to not have seen. In the back lounge, in a corner booth beneath a framed black and white photograph of a horse race from 1978, Kang Min-jae was laughing with his cast, resting on the lip of a crystal glass. The 3 friends beside him froze when they saw Min-hyuk cross the room. Min-jae did not freeze, because drunk men are always last to understand what the rest of a room has just understood. Min-hyuk-si, what a surprise. Please, sit. Drink with... Min-hyuk took the glass out of Min-jae's hand, set it on the table, and sat down in the booth beside him. The 3 friends stood up without being asked, and left. Min-hyuk-si, quiet. From inside his jacket, he drew a thin manila folder and set it on the table, turning it so Min-jae could read the top page. Min-jae flipped the cover with the slowness of a man who already knows what he is about to see. The first photograph was Min-jae in the lobby of a hotel in Gangnam, 18 months ago, his hand around the upper arm of a young woman who was not Naomi. The second was a bank record. The third was another hotel. The fourth was a notarized sworn statement from a former gallery assistant, signed and sealed. The folder was 2 centimeters thick. Min-jae's face did not drain of color the way it had in the gallery 4 nights earlier. This time the color slid out of it in pieces, like water leaving a cloth. How did you? I have had men on you since the morning after the gallery. I have men on you in every direction your life moves in. I have photographs of your father's housekeeper's bank account. I have statements from 4 women who have never met each other. I have the notary who stamped the Nigerian girl's contract. He is a guest in my home as of yesterday afternoon. What do you want? 3 things. First, sign the papers on the second page of that folder. They transfer full ownership of Gallery Kang to a foundation whose name you will not recognize. Second, announce your retirement from the Seoul art world within 72 hours. You will never again appear on Korean television, radio, print, podcast, or YouTube. If your face appears on any screen larger than a phone for any reason other than a family funeral, I will make the second half of this folder public within 4 hours. The second half is worse than the first. You have not seen it. Min-jae swallowed. And the third. Min-hyuk leaned forward, and his voice when it came was so soft that the hostess at the far door did not hear it, though she would later swear on her mother that she had felt it across the room. The third is that for the rest of your life, every time you pass a painting being restored in any window of any gallery in any city on this earth, you will remember the name Naomi Okonkwo. You will remember it in the morning when you wake. You will remember it at night when you close your eyes. You will know every single time that you are alive because she asked me to leave you alive, and for no other reason. If you ever forget her name, if you ever say it carelessly in any room, if you ever attempt to contact her in any form, and I already know you tried last night, so let us be very clear about what last night was going to cost you if she had not been the one to say ruined instead of dead. I will come back to this club, or wherever you are drinking that night, and I will not bring a folder. Min-jae was crying, the silent kind. Min-hyuk slid a pen across the table. Sign. Min-jae signed. When it was done, Min-hyuk folded the papers back into the folder, rose, and walked out of the club without looking back. The 2 men on the motorcycle had been waiting at the far end of the bridge for the past 40 minutes. The first bullet hit the rear passenger window of the black car, before the driver had finished the lane change. Tempered glass spiderwebbed across Min-hyuk's left shoulder in 1,000 small, clean cracks. Down, the driver shouted. Min-hyuk was already down. The second shot went through the rear tire. The car swerved, sparks flying along the asphalt, and the driver pulled hard onto the service road beneath the bridge, tires screaming. The motorcycle followed, engine rising, the second rider leaning out with a short handgun pressed against his forearm for stability. Min-hyuk reached under the front seat, drew out a pistol he had placed there 4 years ago and not touched since, and released the safety. Slow to 20. Min-hyuk-si. Slow to 20. The car slowed. The motorcycle closed the gap. Rolling down the window of the door that had not been shot, he waited until the motorcycle was almost beside them, and fired twice. Once into the front tire of the bike, once into the shoulder of the rider behind the driver. The bike went down at 40 kilometers an hour, skidding across the service road in a shower of sparks, and the two men tumbled free and came to a stop in a tangled heap against a concrete barrier. Stop the car. You are bleeding. Stop the car. Looking down, he saw a thin line of red soaking through the white of his shirt along the left collarbone. He did not care. He got out, pistol low against his thigh, and walked across the service road to the two men against the concrete barrier. The one he had shot in the shoulder was conscious, breathing hard, eyes wide and white in the sodium light. Who sent you? The man spat. Missed. Min-hyuk pressed the barrel of the pistol gently against the meat of the man's uninjured thigh. Who sent you? The man's English came out in pieces. Tiger faction. Said the black girl belongs to all of us. Said Min-hyuk is keeping what is not his. Enough. He stood, lowered the pistol, walked back to the car, and did not finish either of them. He had learned, in 4 years of doing this, that leaving 2 living witnesses who had failed was a louder warning than leaving 2 dead ones. In the back seat, he took out his phone and sent a single message in Korean. Tiger faction, the old leadership, all of it, tonight. Home. He did not let Naomi see the shoulder when he came in. The driver took him first to a back room off the kitchen, where a younger doctor was already waiting, pulled 3 pieces of tempered glass from the wound, cleaned it, and stitched it closed in silence. 20 minutes. No painkillers. When he climbed the stairs afterwards, his left arm stiff in a fresh white shirt, buttoned carefully to hide the bandage, he stopped once on the landing outside her door. He did not knock. He stood there perhaps 30 seconds, listening to her breathing on the other side of the wood, and then walked on to his own room. He slept badly, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw the small red flash of the motorcycle headlight in the rearview mirror. And he understood, with the clarity of a man who had spent 4 years being untouchable, that the touchable thing had not been him. The ruin of Kangmin-jae played out across the next week like a slow-moving weather system. The transfer of Gallery Kang was reported in the Korean business press as a health-related retirement. The morning shows stopped booking him within 36 hours. A second young woman who had worked at the gallery in 2023 went on a podcast and told a story that was not Naomi's, but was adjacent to it, and 3 more women followed. And by Friday, the same anchors who had laughed with Min-jae about Pyeongchang were pronouncing his name with the careful distance professionals reserve for men they are about to stop mentioning altogether. Naomi watched none of it. Min-hyuk had the television removed from her room the night he returned from the club, without asking her. He simply walked in with 2 of his men and lifted the panels out of the wall and left a space of unbleached paper where the screen had been, and Naomi had said nothing because she had not known how to ask for the removal without sounding weak. He understood her, she was beginning to realize, in a way that no one had understood her since her father had died. On the 5th evening after the club, he knocked at 8, and when she opened it, he was carrying 2 small porcelain cups and a teapot on a black lacquered tray. "May I come in?" She stepped aside. Setting the tray down on the low table near the window, he poured 2 cups without asking her preference, because he had been paying attention for 5 days and no longer needed to. The tea was the honey kind. Setting the cup beside her elbow on the arm of the chair where she had been reading, he took the other to the chair across from hers and sat. They drank in silence for a while. "I have something to ask you." "Yes." "There is a charity gala on Saturday night. The foundation that now owns Gallery Kang is the host. I am expected to make an appearance. If I go alone, every old woman in Seoul will spend the evening speculating about whether I have finally stopped grieving. If I go with someone, every old woman in Seoul will spend the evening speculating about who she is. I would prefer the second problem. You want me to go with you? I want to ask you if you would. There is a difference. There is. She studied him and noticed for the first time that he was holding his left arm slightly stiff. "You are hurt." "It is nothing." "That is not an answer." He smiled, small and tired. "A misunderstanding on the way home from the club. It has been handled. The arm is fine." She let it go, not because she believed him, but because pressing him now would cost more than it would earn. "People will look at me." They will. They will not be kind. No. Some of them knew her. Most of them knew her. Then why? He set down his cup. "Because I would like to be in a room full of people who knew her, standing next to you, and let them understand without being told that the woman beside me is not her. I have spent 4 years letting them believe I am waiting for her ghost. I am not waiting for a ghost, Naomi. I would like to stop performing as if I am." She was silent a long moment. "If I go, I am not wearing red." "No. Not white either." "No. Something of my own choosing, not hers. Every dress in this house is yours to choose from. But if you would like something new, I will have 3 people meet you in the drawing room at 9 tomorrow morning, with any designer in Seoul you would like. You will choose, not them, not me. You. Yes, I will go." "Thank you. Min-hyuk-si." "Do not thank me yet. Wait until after the gala." He rose, crossed to the tray, and before he left he bent and kissed the crown of her braids. A single small kiss on the top of her head, the way a man kisses someone he has decided to belong to without yet being able to say it out loud. "Good night." He walked out. She sat in the chair for a long time after the door closed, her hand resting where his mouth had been. The dress she chose was the deep, unhurried blue of a Lagos sky half an hour after sunset. Off the shoulder, with sleeves that flared gently at the wrist, the way her mother's church dresses had when she was a little girl. A narrow gold belt. No train. No slit. She had left the braids loose along her back and had placed a thin gold chain along her collarbone above her mother's cross. And when the designer had asked about earrings, she had said no, because the cross was the only jewelry that belonged to her mother, and her mother was the only woman whose approval she was still dressing for. When she came down the marble staircase that night, Min-hyuk was at the bottom in black tie, with his left hand on the banister. The silver streak caught the chandelier light. Looking up, he did not move for a full 5 seconds. "Naomi." "Yes." "That is not a dress." "What is it?" "That is the sky above my country on the night I meet someone I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve." She reached the bottom, and he lifted her hand and brought the back of it to his lips and held it there for one long, quiet second. The gala was held in a Yungu ballroom, and every old woman in Seoul was in attendance. Some looked once and turned away. Some looked twice and whispered. One, a thin woman in her 70s with pearls the size of quail eggs, walked directly across the floor through a sea of people who moved out of her way, stopped, and studied Naomi's face for 7 seconds without speaking. "You are not her," she said finally in English. "No, you look like her. I have been told." Her mouth moved into something that was not a smile, but was not an attack. "She would have liked you. She did not like most people, but she would have liked you." She walked away, and the sea closed behind her. Min-hyuk's hand tightened briefly at the small of Naomi's back. "Breathe." "I am breathing." "Good." From the far side of the ballroom, a voice lifted above the string quartet, sharp, female, Korean, drunk. A woman in a red dress shouting near the champagne table. What is she saying? Min-hyuk's jaw had gone tight. She is Hyun's cousin. She is saying you do not have the right. Naomi did not let him finish, lifting her chin, not at him, not at the cousin, but at the crowd. She took one slow step out from beneath his hand and walked across the ballroom floor in her blue dress. The string quartet faltered and recovered. She stopped 2 paces in front of the cousin. "I do not have the right to be her, I agree. I am not here tonight as her. I am here as myself. I am Naomi Okonkwo, from Surulere, in Lagos, in Nigeria. I restore paintings. My mother's name is Ngozi. My father's name was Emeka. He has been dead for 4 years, and I loved him, and I believe he would have liked the man standing behind me, because my father also had quiet hands and a loud heart. Your cousin is not here tonight. I am sorry for that. But I am not her replacement, not her shadow, not her ghost. I am a living woman in a blue dress, and I would like very much for you to allow me to have my own evening." The ballroom had gone silent. The cousin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then, very slowly, she lifted her champagne flute in a small shaking hand, tilted it 2 inches in Naomi's direction, the smallest possible toast, and turned and walked unsteadily back to the table. The quartet began to play again. Walking back across the ballroom, Naomi found Minhyuk where she had left him. His face was the most naked she had ever seen it. "Take me home. I have done what we came for." He took her home. Somewhere near the bridge over the Han, he reached across the bench and took her hand, not holding it exactly, but lifting it into his own palm the way a man lifts a small living thing he has been waiting to meet. He turned it over, studied the scraped knuckles almost healed now, and pressed the pad of his thumb once, very gently, against the center of her palm. "I do not know what you are. I am a woman in a blue dress. No. I am a Nigerian restorer with a forged contract and a gold cross. No. Then what am I? I do not know yet. But whatever you are not a second version of anyone. You did something tonight that I have been trying to do for 4 years and could not. You did it in a room full of strangers in a borrowed country in a language that is not yours. I have not decided whether that terrifies me or whether it is the first honest thing that has happened to me since the night I lowered her casket." She leaned across the bench seat, slowly, the way a woman moves toward a dangerous animal she has decided to no longer be afraid of. And she kissed him. His hand came up to the back of her neck, under the heavy rope of her braids, and his mouth met hers, the way a man meets a shoreline after a long time at sea. Not desperate, not hurried, but certain, as if he had been drifting in her direction for longer than either of them understood. She tasted of champagne and honey and cold Seoul air. He tasted of cedar and smoke, and something older underneath. Her hand found the place at his collarbone where the shirt sat stiff over the bandage, and she felt him flinch, once, small, and she understood, with the sudden sharp certainty of a woman who had lived with a man who hurt her for 3 years, that something had happened the night of the club that he had not told her about. She did not break the kiss. She only moved her hand an inch lower, away from the wound, and settled her palm flat against the dark ink over his heart, and kissed him deeper, so that he would know, without her having to say it, that she had noticed, and that she would ask him about it later, and that she was not angry. "Minhyuk. I am in trouble. I know. You are also in trouble. I know that too." In the foyer, she did not go up the stairs. She turned and faced him, her mother's gold cross at her collarbone, her blue dress catching the chandelier light, her mouth still soft from the car. "Not tonight," he had said outside the bathroom 5 days ago. "Tonight," she said now. He did not move. "Minhyuk. Yes. I am not waiting anymore." He closed the 3 paces between them in 2, lifted her off the marble floor with the arm that was not bandaged, and carried her up the staircase the way he had carried her out of the gallery on the first night. Except this time her arms went around his neck, and her face pressed into the side of his jaw, and the silver streak in his hair brushed her temple with every step he climbed. He did not take her to her room. He took her to his. The walls were the colour of old parchment. A low bed beneath a window that faced east. A single lamp he did not bother to turn on. The moonlight through the window was enough, falling across the cream sheets in a long pale rectangle. He set her down at the edge of the bed and stood in front of her for a long moment without doing anything, just looking, the way a man looks at something he has been told he is not allowed to have, and has decided to take anyway. "Are you sure?" "Yes. If you change your mind at any point." "I know. I have not done this in 4 years. I know. I do not know if I will know how to be." She lifted a hand to his mouth and pressed 2 fingers gently against his lower lip. "Stop. You do not have to know how. You only have to stay." His eyes closed. He lowered his forehead to hers, and his good arm came around her waist, and very slowly enough that she felt the tremor in his fingers along the zipper at the back of her dress, He began to undress her the way a man unwraps something he has been waiting 4 years to open. The blue dress slid down her dark skin and pooled around her feet on the parchment rug. Her mother's gold cross stayed where it was. He did not touch it. When he laid her down on the cream sheets, the moonlight fell across her shoulders and the upper curve of her chest and the soft hollow beneath her collarbone. He looked at her for a long moment without moving, the way a man looks at a painting he has been told is priceless, and is only now beginning to understand why. Say my name. Minhyuk. Again. Minhyuk. Once more. Minhyuk. He kissed her then. Not the careful kiss of the bathroom floor, not the claiming kiss of the car. A different kiss. One that began at her mouth and travelled slowly down the line of her jaw and the side of her throat, to the bruises still yellowing along her collarbone, and he pressed his lips to each of them in turn, as if apologizing on behalf of every hand that had ever been raised against her. Hot, slow tears slid from the corners of her closed eyes into the hair at her temples. He did not wipe them away. He kissed them too, one at a time, and then her mouth again. And when his hand finally came to rest warm and still against the bare place above her heart, she understood that the man who had bought her was the first man in 24 years who had ever touched her, as if her body were a place he had been given permission to enter, and not a place he had taken. What happened after that is not something the story needs to tell you the shape of. It was quiet. It was slow. It was not desperate. His mouth stayed on her skin in small, reverent motions, and her hands stayed on the ink at his neck and across his shoulders, careful of the bandage, and at one point in the middle of it she whispered his name against the edge of his jaw, and his whole body stilled for a long second, as if he had been waiting for 4 years to hear his own name spoken by a woman who was choosing to say it. When it was over, she lay with her head against the unhurt side of his chest, and his good arm was around her back, and the moonlight had moved 2 inches across the cream sheets, and somewhere in the compound a single bird had started calling the way birds do at the very beginning of a Seoul morning that has not yet begun. Naomi. I am not going to be able to go back. To what? To the man I was at 10 o'clock this evening. He is gone. I do not know the man lying in this bed with you, but he is not the one who walked into that ballroom. She smiled against his chest. Good. They slept. On the other side of the house, in a narrow room off the first-floor kitchen that he had kept as his own for 9 years, Park Eugene sat at a small desk with a single lamp burning. The desk had belonged to his father. The lamp had belonged to his grandmother. The photograph in the small silver frame beside the lamp was not Seo Hyun, as any visitor would have assumed at a glance. It was a picture of Eugene and Hyun together, at 16, before Minhyuk had ever met her. 2 teenagers laughing on a rock in Gangwon-do, her hair wet from the sea, his arm around her shoulders in a way that could have been a cousin's arm, or could have been something else. Eugene had loved her first. He had loved her when she was still a girl with salt in her hair. He had loved her when Minhyuk had arrived at their university at 19, silver-streaked even then, with eyes that had already seen too much, and had looked at her once across a philosophy seminar, and stopped looking at anyone else. Eugene had loved her through 3 years of engagement. Eugene had loved her through the night she had come to his apartment in the rain, 4 years ago, and told him that she was going to call off the wedding. Not for him, she had been careful to say. Not for him, she was going to tell Minhyuk the truth and go somewhere alone and think. Because she could not marry a man whose world was as dangerous as Minhyuk's world, and she could not marry Eugene either. Because she did not love him the way Eugene loved her. And she was sorry. Eugene had loved her, and then Eugene had killed her, and then Eugene had spent 4 years being the gentle friend at the side of the man who would have slit his throat if he had known. He had also, 3 nights earlier, unlocked the door of Naomi's bedroom at 1:40 in the morning, walked in on soft feet, and plugged in a cracked black phone he had retrieved from a box at Gallery Kang the morning after the gallery. He had not sent the text. He had only made sure the phone was there. He had known, because he had watched Kang Min-jae for 9 years, that a man like Min-jae would not be able to resist reaching for a woman he had lost when he saw her number reappear on his screen. Eugene had spent 4 years learning that grief, if it was patient enough, could be steered. Now, in the small room off the kitchen, in the light of his grandmother's lamp, he was looking at a photograph on his phone screen A photograph a man at the gala had sent him 40 minutes earlier, of Naomi Okonkwo in a blue dress, standing in the middle of a silent ballroom with her chin raised and her mother's gold cross glinting at her collarbone, telling the cousin of a dead woman that she was no one's ghost. A second photograph had come in 10 minutes ago, taken from across the second-floor landing, of Lee Min-hyuk carrying Naomi through his bedroom door in her blue dress, her arms around his neck. Yujin set the phone face down. He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes for a long moment. When he lowered his hands, his face had changed in the way water changes when the wind turns. Reaching into the bottom drawer, he took out a small wooden box. Inside was a thin gold chain with a small cracked charm on it, in the shape of a wave. He had given it to Hyen at 16. She had worn it until the night she had come to his apartment in the rain. He had removed it from her throat himself before he had buried her, and he had kept it in this box for 4 years. And he had never, in 9 years of service to Lee Min-hyuk, touched it again. He touched it now, lifting the chain in both hands, holding it against the lamplight. He watched the small cracked wave swing once, slowly, in the quiet air. "I was supposed to be loved," he said softly to the empty room, in the Korean he only ever spoke to himself. Not him. Me. He placed the chain carefully back in the box, closed it, put it back in the drawer and turned off the lamp. In the dark, alone in the small room off the kitchen, Park Yujin began to think about how one killed a woman in a blue dress without anyone understanding, for as long as possible, that she had been killed at all. Upstairs, in a bed of cream sheets under a window that faced east, Naomi Okonkwo slept with her cheek against the heartbeat of a man who had been broken for 4 years and had just, in the small hours of a Seoul morning, been put back together by a Nigerian girl from Surulere, whose mother's gold cross was still at her throat. She did not know what Yujin was thinking. She did not know that somewhere inside the walls of that same house, in a small room off a first-floor kitchen, a wooden box had been opened for the first time in 4 years. She only knew that the chest beneath her cheek was rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm, and that the arm around her back was warm, and that the bird outside the window had started calling again. She closed her eyes. She slept a little deeper. If you are still here, if you have stayed through the gallery, through the car, through the text message in the dark, through the bathroom floor, through the club, through the bridge, through the ballroom, through the blue dress, and through the quiet bedroom where a man who had not been touched in 4 years was finally touched, then you are the reason this story gets to keep being told. Stay close. Drop in the comments where you are watching from. Tell us you are still here. Because somewhere in this house, a box has just been opened, and a man who has spent 9 years wearing a mask has just taken the mask off in the dark. And the woman sleeping upstairs does not know it yet. What comes next is the part of the story she has not earned her way through yet. It is the part she is going to have to survive, and we would rather not watch her survive it alone. Subscribe, and we will meet her on the other side of it together.